So I worked 4 years at the art college, and I'd come here after that. So I worked 9 till I think it was 5:30 at the art college, and I'd drive out here then, and I'd work till 9, 10 o'clock at night out here, and then I did it for 4 years. And sometimes I'd come out here and chuck a blanket on the clay, all the bags of clay, try and sleep for an hour, so I could wake up and do 3 hours work. I couldn't not come. I had to come. It was more stressful if I didn't come. And then a job came up at the Royal National College for the Blind, part-time teaching job. So I thought I'd apply for that. Teaching what they called Foundation Ceramics course they did there, and an art and design course. But I only worked 3 days a week, term time only. And I wasn't selling a lot of work. And I just decided to go figurative and knock all my pots on the head, and for 2 years I never sold anything. Yeah, and so I was living on £10,000 a year, running a flat and my studio. I don't know how I did it, but I managed to get through it. When I did come up with my first range of ceramic work, which were, I had about a set of 4 and about 4 other pieces, which I put in the main exhibition for H Art Week, and it all sold, and people were really enjoying the work. And I worked at the Blind College for about 3 years, then I went back engineering part-time, working weekends, in pig factories and chicken factories, and then worked at the studio all week, which was pretty good, except I didn't have a social life. Well, I was doing the affordable art fairs in London through Green Stage Gallery, and they were selling quite a lot of work, and I was doing really well down there, and I was well known down there. And then I lost my engineering work, and I had to go back and when I ran out of money, go and get another job. But I'd come out to the studio every night, work a Friday afternoon and all day Saturday, and then I started doing really well. Just before COVID, I was doing really well, selling virtually everything I was making. So I had the feeling that, no, I wasn't very well known, but the gallery owner was saying, people come to the fair and ask about you, and they collect your work and they want to know what you're doing, and I don't get to see that. So it feels like you're not doing that. So I wanted to paint again. I painted before I did my ceramic degree, and I had the urge to paint again. Well, the thing when I was painting before, I didn't know what I wanted to paint. I could paint, but I didn't have anything driving it. But now the research, all the research development, all my ideas for my ceramics, I could translate to paintings. So even though my paintings look pretty different to my ceramics, the actual, what drives it all is exactly the same. So I've got a reason to paint. I've got subject matter, and I've got themes that run through my paintings similar to my ceramics, but I didn't have the time to do it. The thing that's allowed me to do it is going part-time at work. So it's given me time. And time for an artist is probably the most important thing. If you haven't got time, you can't do nothing. If you haven't got any money, you can't do anything. So you need a bit of both. And I'm in a situation now where I can do that, which allows me to paint and still do my ceramics. The only reason I've carried on working is to allow me to have money to carry on doing this. So this has been, ever since I decided to do this, this has always been the most important thing. This is the most important thing I'm doing. My job's the hobby. You know, I got to have the job to have money to pay all the bills that we're all in a trap of paying. So I've got to pay for the studio. If I didn't sell any artwork, my wages would pay for the studio. For the last 16 years, it's paid for itself. First 6 years, I had to pay for it. I had to pay materials, rent, gas, everything. So that came out of wages. I'm doing a solo exhibition at Camwood, which I've arranged myself. to launch the paintings that I've just been doing. I took the exhibition on without having any paintings, and I said I wanted the wall space and I'm going to fill them up with paintings. I wasn't too worried about the ceramics because I've been doing that for 20 years, and I can put a show on with ceramics, but I didn't know about paintings, but I think I'm going to pull it off. And the reason for the exhibition is to put a body of work together that then I can then promote. I want to do it for myself. You know, when we're long gone, pieces of work will still be in people's collections and get passed down to family members and so on, hopefully. I don't know if that's a driving force for me. It'd be nice that you know you're going to do that, but I'm most happiest if I'm making something and I'm being creative. I've had periods in my life where I haven't, and that's when I've been at my most sombre, really. I'm happier if I can do it. Even when I was working full time and I'm just doing 2 hours a day, that's enough to keep me sane. So, but if I'm here 8 hours a day, that's even better. So the more chance you got, the more you can do your art, the more you need money to buy materials. And I think the more you get those sort of things right, the more creative you can be, because you can take more chances, you can risk losing stuff. So I can make things now, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. The reason I come up with blue and white figurative work was because I didn't have any money, and when I made it, I had some clay, I had some glaze materials, I had a bag of clear glaze, you buy it in ready-made. I had some glaze materials and I had some tin oxide, and I just mixed it all together, which is not what you're supposed to do, but it made a really nice tin glaze. I had cobalt, I had some blue and white decals, which I was going to try and develop some porcelain blue and white tableware, so I could decorate with that, and it kind of happened because that's all I had, but it worked. So when I decided to go figurative, I made a decision I wanted to do the human figure. Even when I was painting before I went to art college, it was always the human figure was in my work. And when I did my first year in Cardiff, I did some figurative work, and I could kind of make them. I know the human figure, and I could paint it, and I knew I could make it. So, being an engineer, my mentality is, why do I want to learn that when I'm at uni? I'll learn something I can't do. And the potter's wheel is probably the hardest skill to learn, so I learned that. And when I decided to go figurative, I had to make a lot of decisions what my work was going to be. And if you're working in ceramics, you've got technical issues. So I think probably most people would go, oh, I love stoneware, the way it feels. Stoneware is high-fired clay, it's vitreous, it feels lovely. But I liked it, but I decided I'd lower my temperature range to kind of higher earthenware. 1120 I fire at now, because it would allow me to make more complicated things, and I'm probably going to lose less in the firings. So if I wanted to make complicated plinths, if you fire them lower, you've got more chances of them being successful. So that was one parameter. I was going to fire at these temperatures, so then all my glazes need to be fired at those temperatures, which I didn't have any, so I'd have to come up with that. So it was all new glazes, or I didn't know how I was going to decorate. It could have been it just slipped. I didn't know. So then I had a massive problem of, why am I making ceramic figures? And I couldn't really come up with anything. And as I was trying to sort that problem out, I was practicing how I would make the figures. So I could make them with little patches of clay, coiling, there's all the recognised ceramic techniques. And then I was looking through loads of sculpture books. I've got loads of sculpture books, and then I kind of thought, historically, all the artwork were on buildings, churches and cathedrals, and public art, and I liked a lot of that. In the books they were great, but there was nothing jumping out of me going, this is your starting point. So it coincided with buying Anthony Gormley's book and me going, well, I got a cathedral in Hereford, I haven't been in there for years, let's go and have a look. When I came out of the cathedral, I decided to have a walk around where all the stonemasons were working. And one guy was having a cup of coffee, leaning against a big stone block. And all of a sudden I went, that's it there. The human figure juxtaposed to an architectural form was really interesting. And so my first figures I made, and I still do it now, I make architectural forms with figures on there, either standing, leaning, sitting. How do you recline, how do you move, what's your position on that block, how would that block make you sit, how would it affect your legs, your arm position, and you could put groups of figures on these blocks, and that gave me a starting point. So it was all about the human figure with its subtle curves against a quite hard-edged architectural form. So now I had a starting point, a reason to make it. I've got a way in, but I didn't know how I was going to decorate it. And then that's when having no money and just having the materials available that I had led to me doing tin glaze and blue and white. This all led on to, I did this for maybe 5 or 6 years. All I did was make blue and white figures on architectural forms, and I couldn't seem to get past that and come up with anything new. And then when I was working weekends, pig factories and things, I think the one weekend we used to work 12 hours on a Saturday, 6 till 6, travelling as well. And then on a Sunday you started at 6 in the morning and worked till the job was finished. And the one morning we finished on the Monday morning at 8 o'clock. Started at 6 o'clock on a Sunday, finished at 8 o'clock on a Monday. So got back into Hereford at 8 o'clock, so I probably had 3 hours in bed, come out the studio and thought, I can't face rolling out slabs, I can't face press moulding components. I'm just going to sit on my chair and start coiling a figure. I'm going to do a large figure that I could get in the kiln, which I knew was probably 1100 mil high, and I'm just going to start making that and do a bit of that all week. So I made a base, started coiling the legs up, and continued. You can't do it all in one day. I did it over a week, and then I thought, when I got to his arms and his hands, I thought, well, what's he going to be doing? I can't just have him with his arms by his side. He's not doing anything. I find that quite difficult to do. So I do get swifts, or used to get swifts, nesting in the roof space, and they would come in and land on the kingspan lagging, and they'd see some light, and they'd end up coming into my studio, which they can't get out of. They can't take off and fly. So I'd end up picking them up and taking them outside and waiting for them to fly off out of my hand, which is a pretty incredible thing to happen. And so I decided to put him mould in a Swift, which turned him into me. And then I made it, because I didn't do any drawings or measurements or anything, I just made it from memory. And he looked a bit stocky. He was good, but he looked like he could actually kill you. And I thought, that's really quite an interesting image, that he looked like he could kill you, but he's being really gentle with this little Swift. So I decided to call it the Pugilist and the Swift, which made me think of actually myself as an artist and trying to survive as an artist. And I'd go into a pig factory on the weekends and I'd be cutting up big pieces of metal, lumping metal around factories, welding, grinding, the complete opposite of what I'm trying to do at the studio, and the two things were a contrast, and it came to represent my struggle as an artist and what I needed to do to be able to do art. So that, I thought that could be a range of work, that could be something, a theme I could continue with. And then it was at the end of that year, we had a really bad winter, -10 for about 2 weeks, and I'd come out the studio and shouldn't have really come out, but the clay was frozen. I'd thaw it out by the wood burner, then I'd make something with it, come in the next day, what I'd made would be frozen, so it all cracked open and I'd have to stick it back together. It's a real struggle, but I couldn't not come. And I remember sitting by my wood burner trying to make stuff, thinking, oh, I can't wait for the Swifts to come back. So I made a load of small figures, smaller plinths, so it was a similar theme, but I made them all pugilists waiting for the Swifts. And that came a metaphor for waiting for better times. So these guys were all sitting on plinths, architectural forms, looking up into the air, looking for the Swifts, waiting for better times to come, which is exactly what I was doing at the time, and still am. And it seemed to resonate with the viewers. People could go, oh yeah, that's like my life, that is. And so that's a range of work that I still continue with now, and it's going to go into my paintings as well. And then I'm looking for new themes all the time, but it's not that easy to come up with them. So another series I do is the Precious series, which is the figures have kind of got a rusty surface, looks like rusty metal, and then the next layer is a ceramic surface, and then the next layer is a gold surface. And this came about from doing Brighton Fine Art Fair, where I talked to a guy, John Allen, I think his name is. Turned out he was an artist, and we were talking about my work for probably an hour and a half. He collected ceramics and he bought a couple of pieces, and he asked me how I was doing, and I said, no, not that good. And he kind of said, why are you doing this fair? And I said, oh, I'm trying to sell some work. And I didn't agree with him, but he said, your work's too good to be at this fair. I didn't really get that, because I actually thought all the other artists' work was really good as well. But this is what he said, and he said, in the end he came up with, do you know what your biggest problem is? And I said, no. He said, you don't actually believe you can do it, do you? And I said, no, not really. I said, I grew up on a council estate. We don't do stuff like this, but this is what I want to do. But yeah, there's part of me that thinks I shouldn't be doing it. This is what happens, this is what other people do, not me. But in spite of that, I'm doing it. The trouble with doing art is you want to do art. It doesn't necessarily mean you want to sell it. You won't do it. You know, some artists, I can't really speak for other artists, but the most important thing and the driving thing for me is making the piece of artwork. What happens to it after that, I really don't care. But part of the whole reason I'm doing my art and sold my house and started again at 35 and risked everything to do art was because I didn't love myself. I didn't like my life, I didn't like me. I was doing things that I didn't think were right. The way I lived my life. If you're in engineering and working in factories, you can't be a nice person and survive that. When I was toolmaking and I was doing metal sculptures and being artistic, I got ridiculed for it. I didn't care, because I developed a thicker skin, and plus I developed an answer for everything. So if someone was horrible to me, I was more horrible to them, and then they would stop being horrible to me. And that's not a world I wanted to be in, really. So by doing my art, I felt like I turned back into myself. I could do and talk about and be all the things I wanted to be, which in mainstream life some people don't like or not comfortable with. So it made me think about all those things, and then you know, I took quite a while. How could I express that in a ceramic figure? And ceramics is quite often viewed as a poor relation in the art world. So I think I've added value to my life by doing my art and doing the things I've done. So I went from working in factories to running the ceramic department at the art college, which was somewhere I used to drive past going, oh, I wish I could go there. I ended up working there. I taught at the RNC, which I was so proud to do because it's quite a prestigious blind college, and I was so proud to have the badge that I wore around my neck. I thought it was a really valuable job, and it made me feel like a better human being, and doing my art does that. And so everything I've achieved since doing my art has made me love myself more. And so for that Precious series, it became a rusty figure peeling back a layer, revealing a ceramic layer which is more valuable, and that layer is being peeled back as well, and you're revealing a golden figure underneath, which represents someone who's got value in himself, which is now me, because I do my art.